it was then that I saw the wisdom of the founding fathers, just to be honest with you. Because if I can't even fix something that's clearly rotten at the county level, right here in my own little neck of the woods, what the hell am I going to do to the UN? You know, it sounds like this wonderful organization that, you know, the world, we're going to get peace and all that, but you get a few rotten apples and it's just over.
This is the town I've lived in for the past 4 months. It's a lot like your town, big or small. In fact, it is your town. This is Hamilton, Montana. This is the land of 3 months of surprisingly hot summer, a month of perfect spring, and fall is packed somehow into 2 scant weeks of exuberant, almost New England color and crisp air. Then, of course, there's Montana winter, 6 months of it. But it's the other 6 months and the awe-inspiring backdrop of the snow-capped Bitterroot Mountains that draw people here. It's all here. Beauty, wonderful, and hardy people. Festivals almost every weekend for what amounts to no real reason. No complaints here. There is division. There are secrets. There are mistakes. There is fear and the opposite of fear. And there is ignoring. It's a land of extreme left and extreme right. And all the sub-factions therein.
Take things a little more seriously, and actually
Montana is no longer considered by law a rural state. We're now a frontier. So you have a hard time imagining Montana. We're what's good for San Francisco is not good for Montana. Montana is a frontier by nature.
I'm not happy with the Republicans or the Democrats or anybody else.
You get a chance to throw me out there.
Sometimes there are disincentives to do the right thing. Here, those that agree and disagree, but nobody's ever really disagreeable. I mean, some people sort of lie. But that's what's neat about America is we can do this without fear of recrimination.
This is one of the first people to contact me about the problems of Montana. Peter Pilkey. Congenial, gregarious, charismatic, worldly. The guy's done it all. He wrote the book on fly fishing. Literally. He's frustrated. He's angry. This is Mike Spreadberry. He's probably the most frustrated person in the Bitterroots.
First, my name is Mike Spreadberry. I live here in Hamilton. I've been working on trying to get a federal fire station for the NIH lab, National Institutes of Health.
He's tried everything he can think of to draw attention to the problems that he and a lot of people see here.
Between these 2 green awnings is the Valley Republic. It's the crime scene for this area. They freely defame people. When I first moved here in 2005, I was pulled over 3 times. None of them were turned out to be moving violations. And so nothing basically stuck. And I felt it was harassment at the time. We're probably at least 20 officers more than we need in this county. And that's a very conservative estimate. I mean, the 1 per 1,000 is well broken in this county for law enforcement as a model. Right now, we have a reputation because of our law enforcement, because of our local governments, and that's what needs to change.
Hamilton apparently wasn't the only place with these problems. My Montana journey soon took me to the Canadian border, one of the places where Mr. Spreadberry had been in touch with other civil and political watchdog groups.
We're here to talk about the issues, and we're here to do something about lack of proper law enforcement, about increase in crime, and about all the legal issues surrounding things, trying to secure our county. It's just that simple. To freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly. And we believe that if you don't exercise those rights, you lose them. You know, a lot of people believe right now that there are encroachments happening from the Beltway in Washington District of Criminals. If we base what we do on law and order, on the rule of law rather than the rule of men, and having everybody obey the law, including the cops, what kind of shape is the Republican Party in Ravalli County? And we'd like to secure our county first. That's where we have the most power, and we're going to do that by enforcing on the 4 square feet that we stand on the Constitution for the United States. And we believe that's still the supreme law of this land, regardless of how the courts, quote, interpret, unquote, because that was all done by fraud and deception.
Russian Revolution. Do you know how many people started it and managed it and brought it to its conclusion? Greatest revolution of all time. 13.
The posse came out of the posse comitatus of common law. And that was strictly for law enforcement in case of a problem. But there's also a provision in there that if you have a sheriff that won't act in the interest of justice, then the people have the right to appoint their own sheriff.
There is no law in the U.S. Code that says you have to file a 1040.
There's a whispering aspen outside of our bedroom. Whispering aspen out in shelters our dreams. Whispering aspen out in grows every summer. Let it whisper the whole night through. Whisper the whole night through. Whisper the whole night through.
I was not aware, frankly, of the rapes.
We trust a lot of word of mouth. The paper's lying about it, the commissioner's lying about it, and nobody will prosecute the ones that they have. You know, that the women are stopping even to come forward.
6 of them reported to his office, and not one of them prosecuted. We're getting all of the incidents that are coming in, and to some degree, the follow-up on that in a much better format for us to really sit down and look at the crime stats of Lincoln County versus other counties. And that's the whole purpose of this. We should have accessibility to our sheriff. He shouldn't be running and hiding.
They've upped the staff at Libby at the hospital to deal with rape kits.
He should be telling us what happened, why or why not there wasn't one prosecution.
You know, it's obviously going on, but they're still letting it.
Something is wrong.
The key to winning a battle is not having your opponent know what you're going to be doing. And so you have to do things a little bit undercover. The founders met in secret when they were drafting the Constitution. A lot of the business they did, they had to do in secret because the king had his men out there and their lives were at risk 100% of the time.
Our budget in Lincoln County is up 19%. Do you think I can get one newspaper to report that?
Right. No.
Not going to happen.
Ron Paul started the ball rolling with the exposure of the Federal Reserve. Everybody picked up on it during the campaign. Now it's become a major issue on YouTube, on Google Video, and it's being talked about in blogs nationwide and worldwide. And the jig is up. The Federal Reserve is dying. It's on its way out. It's just a matter of exposure. Enough people get on board. That's what the Tea Parties are all about. I've got to say, I'll bet there's a lot of 4-letter words going on in backroom Democrat circles about the internet and how this information is getting out.
At any rate, we loosely got together like this. We met in the basement of the library, and we pursued avenues with Max Baucus and John Tester's office. They've basically not wanted to do anything. MT Justice, the homepage is a 10-page memoir of a collection of our stories. The Bitter Rising is supposed to be a local watchdog site. We have a law enforcement watch. We have a judicial watch. We've got a paper who works with our county attorney. It's all part of one system is basically what I'm trying to say here. They have 15 police officers, only 5,000 people. So in other words, it's like Blackwater USA going after people. It's a private security force to fill the courts.
Here's a town of less than 4,000 people, has 15 cops, 15.
I think the extra population of the outskirts, because they say from bridge to bridge it's like 12 or 15,000, but at least 12. They say that puts an influx of things that the police still need to respond to. There is a lot more of partner assaults and gun presences. That many more people in the bars where there's lots of problems, that many more people driving drunk. I think that is necessitated in their eyes having a lot of times at least 2 officers on duty all the time. I believe there's a need for a lot more policemen than there was when I was younger, and the city limits were about the same, but we didn't have all this outstanding growth.
His situation dealt with a DUI type situation.
I was designated driver for 4 or 5 Marines, and as we had a few drinks, I had 2 drinks. On the way to the hotel, I was definitely set up. Officer was driving a vehicle and said that I almost collided with his vehicle. This was a stage situation. He wrote a bogus report.
We call him Super Cop.
Super Cop.
Okay.
Now that's a point where you can recall that sheriff right there.
Well, he's a city cop, and the city doesn't exist.
And the city doesn't exist. What do you do then?
He's Corn's warrior. You know, all of these officers are there to fill the courts, harass the people.
Protect and serve has never been heard of here. It's fleece the flock.
I'd rather dial a prayer than dial 911.
There you go. That's exactly right.
That's where we're at.
Well, I started hearing stories, which I really didn't pay that much attention to. There was really no reason. There's always a story in a small town, USA, no matter where you go. Local council, the local police department, sheriffs, and it was one story after another. And it was actually getting to be quite depressing. It really was. It's like you really have to start watching and look behind you every time you went somewhere because you didn't trust it anymore, you know. But I wasn't quite sure because nothing ever happened to me. I didn't really have that much to worry about.
We have a very diverse group of people, and all these stories are coming from everyone. All ages, all backgrounds, all educations. You know, when I sell tarot cards or incense or put up naked art, that probably raises eyebrows or questions.
They send messages, definitely people that are not native to the area, they target. Most of who we are in our group are non-native to Ravalli County.
If you can't call the police to help you, who are you supposed to call?
They see you in a restaurant. You come out of the restaurant, you get in your car and you drive off, they pull you over for having a glass of wine.
So we go ahead and leave the Rainbow. We get into her car. She's driving, of course. I've been drinking. And this cruiser comes up behind us with his lights on, like out of nowhere. So he starts giving her a hard time about drinking. Oh, well, you were swerving, you were going over the line, you were going in and out, which certainly was not true at all. So he's playing this game.
This poor woman, she was out standing in her bare feet in frozen ground. She was on meds. Her husband was handcuffed and thrown in the back of the patrol car because he knew it was wrong.
He threw handcuffs on me because I guess I was getting in the way of his so-called investigation. So they put me in the back of his cruiser until they finished, verbally abusing my wife. His excuse of pulling her over was, and I heard him say this to her before I was handcuffed and put in the back of his car, was that I pulled you over because you were parked too long at the bank club. I was dumbfounded because she wasn't drinking anything.
These police officers with 100 DUIs and all this stuff, If they're not incorporated, someone's got to say enough.
There was an incident with my brother who had moved here to help take care of my mother. He came in to tell me that pretty much that I needed to behave and be nice because the hospice women were upset with me. I had been spending the last few nights at the hospice. I was there all the time, all that I could be, and I was probably more particular than most people about her care because I saw some errors, but that's a different story. So wrestling ensued. He had me in a headlock. I'm flailing. His glasses flew off. I called the police. They said, well, you know, we have to arrest somebody. They already kind of had that, like, and we know it's going to be you. The police arrested me, and I spent the weekend in jail. She had to die without me, and all I was doing was wanting to be by her side, like, the whole time. It wasn't even for the right reasons. I get arrested for their sport. It feels like that, you know, they got the lady who they didn't really like. They made me so scared that I couldn't even go back to the hospital. So it's really actually my fault that I didn't see her. Because I could have just, like, been really brave. Actually, I got to meet a woman who killed her husband in Derby. That was fun. She's pretty cool. She actually ran hospice for a little while. She said it's all a conspiracy, hospice.
I was enlightened that evening. I was now part of this group in a bad way, and I was really angry, really, really angry. You know, so.
The deputy did this, the deputy did that. But, you know, when I was a prosecutioner, I was a public defender, you know, I heard that stuff. I heard it from my clients, or I heard it from the guy I'm prosecuting. I'm sure if you look into some of these accusations, you'll find that they have varying degrees of validity. But there's two sides to every story.
Is it possible that you did assault him? You've made physical contact with him first.
Screaming at me and screaming at me. And I'm begging him to leave. And if I did grab his arm first, I don't think that's assault.
Marie, where'd she go? Right here. She came in from Palm Springs, California, and comes up every summer. Within 24 hours of her arriving in Ravalli County, they had a deputy out there to make an arrest on a 6-year-old warrant that had already been taken care of.
Mike Spreadberry, who is running for mayor right now, and I were in the sheriff's office, and we had what I thought was a fruitful conversation about the citizens and the sheriff's department, how we could come together. Mr. Hoffman evidently was so upset but didn't show it, turns around and ran all the license plate numbers and found out that Marie Malley had a warrant. He went back in the archives to look for this.
They're going to be nice and polite and act wonderful, but then, you know, it seems like when a lot of these people get back to their office, they become like, you know, they're from the Dr. Jekyll, they go to Mr. Hyde. They're like two different people. They put the show on for you, but then when they go back into hiding, they become this animal. This cruiser came up my road maybe to see where I lived, wanted to see what it was all about, wanted to see my gate, maybe the gate was open, who knows what he would have done. To me, it looked just like I couldn't for 100% say it was, but who else would be on my road at 11:30 at night? And we're about a good 14 miles outside the city limits of Hamilton out there.
I had attended a city council meeting that night, and I had complained about their police department tactics. Getting ready to go to bed a little after 10 when I let the dog out, and that's when she started barking. There's no bears or anything down. She doesn't bark. She knows all these animals. But anyway, she's barking at something out there in the night. And in my front, right in front of my house, beyond my fence, there was a patrol car. I went out the door and he drove off, went up the street, turned around and came back out in a big hurry, and it was a Hamilton police car. Well, what got frightening is 2 weeks later, after I complained with no success, I appeared at a City of Hamilton function, and the police chief, unbeknownst to me, he was there. He saw me in the crowd, and he went out of his way to say that he had checked on a complaint that I had made. And he talked about We the People, this group that, just the organized citizens. And he said, I investigated on Mr. Pilkey's complaint. And my officer was out there investigating a hit and run. And that's when I got frightened, because the hit and run seems to be the catch-all term. We heard about a guy that saw a guy that says one time you were involved in a hit and run, and you can be arrested for that.
Like, what is it going to take for one of these guys sitting out there with a rifle one afternoon and just take me out on my porch? This is the kind of thoughts that are going through my mind. Maybe he's going to take my wife out, my friends at a party, and then try to accuse me of because now I can believe anything.
I can only speak for myself. Yeah, I can be annoyed to somebody sometimes if they're accusing me of stuff. That's just life.
To the point of trying to silence them?
No, never. And I don't believe anybody in my office has ever done that. In fact, when somebody says I don't believe, it usually sounds like they're trying to cover something up. I know of nobody in my office ever trying to do that, ever.
I will do whatever it takes to protect my life, my wife, my property against anyone. We're constantly wanting to be part of the solution. We want to do right. That's not paranoid. We want to talk openly on TV. Put us on radio. We're not afraid of anything. How's that paranoid?
There's some real strange things going on, I think. I've gotten jumped by a gang of Puerto Rican girls before, for their initiation, and that didn't with me as worrying about a gang of girls come attack me as worrying about my police force.
Right now we have the FBI took our police chief. He's now in Virginia getting retrained, because he covered up a felony hit and run accident that we have a picture of on this website.
I've seen that, yeah.
I was a defense attorney, and there were times when I was down on a deputy or down on a detective or something because I thought they should have done this or should have done that. My point being, I've been on that side of it. As I got over in that office and worked, you kind of work hand in hand with them then, because you're having to call them as witnesses and talk to them again, call them late at night, sometimes on questions before trial. To and large, they're well trained. They're out there trying to do their job.
When I hear from an officer that quit this department here, Hamilton PD, and told me that when they got out of the academy and they came here and they said, forget what you learned in the academy, this is the way we do it here. That's the old West, fellas. You don't do it that way. You don't violate people's civil rights.
I've even seen that to some degree in Los Angeles Police Department down there, because I was a police community rep for a lot of years down there. And the story's, not as bad as up here, not anywhere near. You would think with over 10 million people would be really bad for the LAPD. Nothing at all compared to Ravalli County and Hamilton. Yeah.
I don't know what it's like in nowhere, Alabama, or somewhere, Georgia, or some small town in New England.
They're scared. A lot of people don't want to come forward.
Well, I don't see any reason to be scared. I sure as hell ain't scared.
At times, man, there's so much more rudeness with people than there used to be, and disrespect where people are just up in their face. And I think a lot of times they're exercising some pretty good, whatever the word would be, self-discipline, not to do something that they shouldn't do.
The kind of cop that comes out of a law enforcement academy is much better educated, much better attuned, sensitive, etc., but he's more bureaucratic than in the days where the sheriff says, hell, Billy and I went to school together. I think he'd make a good deputy. You get a different kind of policeman. And there's something to be said for Billy.
A lot of these younger police officers will do something that's maybe not quite right, maybe get a reprimand from somebody, but now it goes from reprimand, and it's like it turns around and they say, well, now you owe me. You do me a favor, I'm going to cover for you, okay? But now you owe me a favor, and it just becomes a vicious circle.
I don't necessarily agree with that last part. I agree with the fact that there can be egos in law enforcement. I'm not so sure that a chief of police, Ryan Oster, or a sheriff, Chris Osman, then goes, I got to back my officer no matter how bad this was because it'll make us look bad. I think if they think the guy should be disciplined, the best thing to do is discipline him. It shows some credibility.
There is brutality with assaults. Induced suicides is what I call it. And then we have no justice.
Lies, cheating, corruption, all this stuff going on.
I can guarantee, and certain people are never going to believe that, there is nothing. There's no conspiracy. We're not out to get anybody. We're too busy doing our jobs, and I would even say honorable to do something like that, and there's going to be people that poo-poo that and not.
They'll pull over defense attorneys on their way back to Missoula, and they'll say, you're not going to defend that person.
There was no lawsuit. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have a lawyer that I could trust.
I've lived here 16 years, and never been treated like what I'm seeing right now.
It's awful to think that we live in the United States and we have to live under this kind of harassment. It's supposed to be a free country.
That's all I've got to say.
I don't doubt that at times a deputy or a sergeant or a corporal or anything else, anybody, has made a mistake. Sometimes maybe because they're young or new, and sometimes maybe just because that situation that we don't see, you just see it on paper, merited it or was a lot more mitigating than it sounds.
Okay, we don't need to be abused for them, followed home at night, beat up, thrown into fires, as one report goes.
I don't know enough about the police because I don't work with them, but I don't believe they've done anything like that. Anybody can say, I don't like that guy driving up and down the road and he's just going to pull you over for no reason to try and give you a DUI. I mean, my God, I've said that before sometimes when I was younger. I have, but I'm not aware of it ever happening.
How does the community perceive this problem? Now, I know
Everybody's very scared.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
this is an underground thing. And we get a lot of winks and a lot of smiles when we walk into places, they're like, hey, we know who you are.
You got people down there that if they've written that many tickets on that many people in that community, you got people down there that are pissed.
Oh, yeah, they are. I believe they are.
Oh, yeah, they are.
I think that the people here have got to they've got to stand up to this and do it. It's not, I don't think the help's coming. I mean, it's like I said, it's being covered up. As far as I'm concerned, it's being covered up in the White House. I wrote a letter to the President of the United States. I'm going to guess that most of you people have not read that letter, because if you had, I doubt very seriously that you could look me square in the eye. I haven't heard back from the President, but that letter is up there. It's a very heart-wrenching, true story involving a lot of people, and especially the city of Hamilton.
Tried to flag a ride. I went down to the crossroads. Tried to flag a ride. Nobody seemed to know me. Everybody seemed to pass me by. I went down to the crossroads. Fell out on my knees. Crossroads, fell down on my knees. Asked the Lord above for mercy. Help me if you please.
the city of Hamilton is not incorporated.
This little town, it isn't even incorporated. I mean, so that was the first question I asked is, by what right do they enforce the laws of the Constitution of the United States? Who do they swear an oath to, and where are my rights?
So as a United States citizen who has sworn oaths before to defend the Constitution of the United States, I would like to put more or less a citizen's arrest on you and ask you to produce that evidence, that piece of paper, that criteria and standard that says that you have the right to enforce, prosecute, and administer the laws of the United States and the state of Montana.
I'd like to know, I have to ask you a question, where the city charter is when this city is organized, and where it's hanging right now where I can physically see it. Can anybody answer that question for me right now?
No.
I think what happened was they lost the paperwork. That's what I think happened. That doesn't mean Hamilton was never a city and isn't an incorporated city now. It meant they lost the paperwork.
So cease and desist until such time as you show us, the people, that you have the right to be pledging allegiance to that thing and enforcing and ruining lives and killing people in this state.
So what's the nexus between those paperwork and problems in the city of Hamilton governing themselves?
You have to show proof of incorporation or you don't exist.
Now you think about that one real good. And the mayor, right there, that's the guy. That does it.
Entertain any personal attacks.
I think it's a tempest in a teapot.
You can't be civil. Please sit down and leave the room.
I apologize to you. The mayor's position is in charge of the police department. And I would advise you to get them off the streets until such time as you prove that you have the right to have them out there. Thank you.
If Hamilton was incorporated, it still is incorporated. Would be really nice if we found the paperwork.
What she don't know is gonna hurt somebody. What she ain't got is gonna break the bank. When she says drive your Cadillac slow and steady, well, you gonna drive your Cadillac slow and steady. She left your love, got a country far behind. That competition ain't got the resources or the time enough to catch your eye or somehow change your mind, somehow change your mind, change your mind. What she don't say is the same old story. What you don't say is familiar news. What you might have had in mind got complicated and bent into the shape of something that she can't use. She left your love, got a country far behind. That competition ain't got the resources or the time enough to catch your eye or somehow change your mind, somehow change your mind, change your mind. 100